It's like super sus, super creepy, and I just didn't trust any characters in this. Hey guys, welcome back to Francesca's Books. My name is Francesca, of course these are my books, and today we're chatting about my April reads and my March TBR. I feel like I haven't been posting as much content recently, but that is all going to change, don't you guys worry. I'll still be back to my weekly videos from this week. And without further ado, here is what I thought of April's books. I have kindly put them in a little pile here for myself so we can just read and chat. So first up, I read The Maid's Diary by Laura Ann White, which I absolutely loved. I gave this book a 4.5. I feel like there is so many like maid thriller books out there now, like After the Housemaid and like The Last Mrs. Parrish, books like that. There is just so many other authors that have come up with similar ideas, but I feel like this one is a really, really unique one. So of course it does follow a maid and she has a snooping problem, don't they all? But there's just a really unique voice behind this character and it definitely didn't go where I thought it was gonna. It's also full of like rich people drama, so if that is your vibe, I would definitely recommend this. Then I read My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downey, which I also really liked, but I gave this one a 4. So this follows a married couple who've been married for so long and they're kind of getting a bit bored in their relationship and they decide to spice it up by unaliving people. I mean, I could definitely think of better ways to like marriage counsel, but anyway, it's a thriller book, this is what happens. I feel like on the plot alone, I would have definitely rated this book lower, but the narrator just absolutely sold this book for me. Like I was wholly invested in him. Also, you never actually get to find out his name. Like he goes by an alias for the whole book and like you never get to find it out, which I think makes it like a little bit more creepy. I also really love this author's writing style, so like her actual writing was super easy to read and I definitely would pick up more books by her. Then very excitingly, I was given an advance copy of The Housemaid is Watching by Freida McFadden, which isn't out until June the 11th. If you haven't heard of the Housemaid series, like literally where have you been? This is the most incredible series of thriller books that I've read and I definitely recommend it if you haven't already. This is the third installment, The Housemaid is Watching, which isn't out until June. So Millie definitely has a dark past, and this installment she has a family of her own and it's the housemaid of the neighbour that she's going to watch out for. This was a really good addition to the Housemaid series and I gave it a 4 star. I just don't think anything could compare to that first book for me. Like I just don't. The best part for me was definitely seeing all the characters like from the first couple of books like come in like and make even like weird guest appearances like in ways that you just didn't even think could possibly connect in that world. I definitely recommend you pick this up when it comes out. Then I read I See You by Claire McIntosh, which was another absolute knockout from this author. Last month I read I Let You Go by this author and gave it a 5 star, literally my favourite book of the year so far, so I had to pick up I See You this month and I still loved it, just not as much, so I gave it a 4.5. It follows a woman who's browsing the newspaper on the tube on her way to work and she goes to the ad section and like there's a picture of her in the classified ad section and she's literally like, sorry. So the tale unfolds and it connects to a whole host of other women. This book is just definitely one you should check out. It also does the like detective and regular story sides of the narrative like really well. Claire McIntosh is amazing for that. Then I read another Freida McFadden book. So I read Do You Remember, which follows a woman who wakes up every day having lost her memory from the past 7 years. It's like super sus, super creepy, and I just didn't trust any characters in this. I gave it a 3.5. It definitely wasn't my favourite by Freida McFadden at all, but it also wasn't my least favourite. Like it was probably in the middle ground somewhere. And then next up, I took the plunge and read Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry, and I've put this one off for a while because I've heard it was so sad and just like really like dark and just like something you need to be in the right headspace for, and I can confirm it was exactly that. So it follows a mother who finds out that her son is like literally a paedophile, and it's like the most morally grey and sad story that you could probably ever read. Like this made me think in ways that I just never thought would even crossed my mind. I was completely encaptured by this story, like I couldn't stop reading it, like literally. And also there was a plot twist in this book which I didn't expect because the tone of the book was more like a memoir narrative type story about what happens between this mum and son, and then there was like this huge plot twist at the end which like isn't really in character for Lucinda Berry. I feel like she does more of like what I mentioned first, but it was absolutely welcomed. I loved the plot twist. It really added like another layer to the whole thing. I feel like that's definitely one that's going to stick with me for a while, so I gave it 4.5. Next up, I read The Institution by Helen Fields, which I also absolutely loved. Like I have just had such a good reading month, I can't even really put it into words. I gave this a 4.5 as well. Like it was just absolutely brilliant. This cover does not do this book justice in any way, shape or form. It looks like quite generic, but the actual story in this, so it follows a forensic profile that goes undercover in this like locked psychiatric facility to try and find a missing baby. So it's kind of like a locked room vibe, but as well as there being 6 prisoners that we follow, the main forensic profiler and her like partner who's also in the prison, there's like a whole host of staff that could have been involved as well. So while it's locked room, it's also kind of like not. I really enjoyed this, so much so that I'm definitely going to pick up more from this author. This month I also read One of Our Own by Lucinda Berry, which is only available as an audiobook at the moment, and I like this. I gave it 3 stars. This wasn't my favourite Lucinda Berry book, but it also wasn't bad, but it just wasn't like a top pick of this month. I think as well because I read so many good books this month, they kind of overshadowed it a little bit. It follows a woman who works on an unaliving hotline, and one day she gets a call that just completely changes her life, and it just kind of unfolds like the events of that. But I will caveat, this book is extremely predictable. Like, it was so obvious. I just thought there was gonna be like a double plot twist. It was that obvious, if you know what I mean. The characters were really well fleshed out, and I really enjoyed the story, and I'm a really big fan of Lucinda Berry. This just was not my favourite of her work. And finally, I told you guys I was gonna do it. I told you, and I did. I read the whole of House of Earth and Blood. Look how long this is, as well as like the other 8 books that I read this month, so just don't even ask me how. So House of Earth and Blood, the first book in the Crescent City series, is fantasy, but I picked it up because it had like a thriller vibe, which after reading, it does not have a thriller vibe. I just thought it had a thriller vibe, so more fault me. So for the non-fantasy readers, I'm gonna put this in like as simple words as I possibly can. It follows Bryce, who's a half human, half fae, which to non-fantasy readers means like non-human, but like doesn't specify what, and I actually don't really know what. Still none the wiser. And basically a really bad tragedy happens to her like near the start of the book, and then she just goes on to investigate said tragedy for like 800 pages. It also follows this Angel Hunt who's assigned to her as a bodyguard, like to protect her in her adventures. I don't know if that's like a legit thing that just happens. I think it's just so that they can have like a love interest in the book, but I wasn't complaining. I really liked it. I really liked both their characters. So the thriller element was good. There was like one like pretty big plot twist about 75% of the way through. However, up until that point, literally nothing happened. Like, it was all world building, if you're a fantasy reader. Obviously, definitely not. But then, like, the last 10%, I was honestly, like, crying reading it. Like, this hit, like, really hard. Like, I can't explain how. It just did. So basically, what I'm trying to say is I was bored, and I also was so involved that I cried, like, simultaneously. Like, I don't know. I think this is just fantasy for you, to be honest. If you like fantasy, you will like this. As a thriller girl, I probably wouldn't recommend it to other thriller readers. I mean, we can all appreciate the gorgeous cover, can't we? And because of all that, I really just feel unfair for me to give it a star rating, but for completion, I gave it a 3.5. And that took a hell of a long time for me to settle on. Quick interval. So those are the books that I read in April, and now I'm going to tell you about my March TBR. So this month, I'm only putting 6 books on my TBR because previously I've been putting 8 on it, and I literally just never get to them all. Like, it's just unrealistic because things come in and like publisher mail comes in and I buy a new book. So I'm thinking I'm gonna stick to 6, and it gives me a little bit of flexibility too. So first up, because I've already started it, it's May the 1st and I picked this up this morning. It is The Couple at Number 9 by Claire Douglas, which is an author I absolutely love and have read a few others of already. But this is literally her most popular book, so I'm not sure why I've never got to this one. As I say, I started this morning and I really, really like it so far. Like, really easy writing style and great premise. It follows a couple who move into a house and they're getting like renovation work done, and they find 2 bodies at the back of their garden, like buried. Spooky, spooky. There are detectives in this, but it's not like a detective point of view, so I feel like I'm gonna get on with this really, really well. And then next, I'm definitely gonna get to Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I was so lucky to get an advance copy of this. It's literally just come through on my Kindle, so I'm definitely gonna read it next. I am such a big Riley Sager fan. I am literally so excited to read this. So it follows Ethan, who goes back to his childhood home where his best friend Billy was either unalived or kidnapped like 30 years earlier, but then like he keeps getting like signs and stuff that he's still around. I have no doubt this will be amazing, like in true Riley Sager fashion. And then I'm actually going on holiday this month, and I want to pack like a lighter read, so I'm going to take Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez because I read Yours Truly about 6 months ago and absolutely loved it. Now this is the first book in that series, but I read Yours Truly because like the premise sounded better to me, but I loved that, gave it 5 stars, so I thought it's probably not going to harm to go back and read the first one. I think this is a bit of a like big city versus small town vibe, and then like how their lives kind of can combine like after a chance meeting. I mean, that's the vibe I'm getting from the cover and the blurb, so that's what it looks like. I'm also going to read She's Not Sorry by Mary Kubica. This has been on my radar for so long and it's just come out finally in the UK, so I'm definitely going to give it a read. So this follows Megan, who's like an A&E nurse, and this girl Caitlin gets admitted after falling / jumping off a bridge, and that's like the mystery, whether she was pushed or whether she was like just trying to herself. That's all I really know. Like, as you guys know, I don't like to read too much about the books that I have on my TBR I'm going to read next. Like, I just like the element of surprise, like whether that's an actual plot twist or whether it's just something in the blurb that I didn't know. Like, I just enjoy it more that way. But I really like this author, so I'm sure I will love this book. And then next up, I've got The Trap by Catherine Ryan Howard, which has been very, very highly recommended to me. So this is about a woman who's trying to trap this guy by hitchhiking, and she just wants this one specific guy to let her in a car. is what the synopsis says. I mean, sounds a bit rando, but I'm gonna give it a go because I say it's been so highly recommended to me and it does sound quite good. It sounds like road trip gone wrong vibes, but vice versa. If this isn't good, Michaela, I'm looking at you. And then my final pick on my May TBR is Brain Damage by Frida McFadden. This will be the very last book of hers that I haven't read, and then I can give you guys my full Frida wrap up, all 18 books of her psychological thrillers. This follows a woman who has a really successful like medicine career, and then one day she gets a brain injury, and I think it's just like the events that unfold, but I'm guessing the plot will go like, was it an accident or was it intentional? So I will let you know. So those are the 6 books that I'm going to aim to read this May. If there's any other books that you think I should add to my TBR, please let me know. And as always, let me know which was your favourite book of April. I love adding books to my TBR. I am just like so over it. All of these books are on my TBR, but of course I've got room for more. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye!